And we're live streaming to you from Founders Park in historic Ocean Grove, New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining us for Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. We love it when our audience likes and shares our videos as it helps our community grow. To see our over 170 past episodes, go on our website at www.jasontram.net. Again, that's www.jasontram.net. And we are so excited. We have a wonderful guest today. We have an indie country singer-songwriter who is doing wonderful work and making quite a name for herself. And after 4 years of balancing a musical career and a college education in biochemistry, and she just said she was thinking of going for her doctorate in biochemistry before jumping full-fledged into the music scene. And we'll talk about how she balanced both. Since then, she's had 3 top 40 singles on the Music Row Country Breakout Chart and 2 Billboard Country Indicator charting singles. Very impressive. With modern production, thoughtful lyrics, and throwback ear-catching melodies, A.C. Jones has been known to attract fans from all genres, even those who have expressed that they aren't fans of country music. With a previous background in CCM, gospel, and worship music, her vocals come with an edge of soul, and her performance comes through with an expression of the heart. Defining her music as an act of service, she states, "Music is her passion, but people are her purpose." Welcome, A.C. Jones.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Great to meet you, and I've really enjoyed getting to know your music. Did you always know you wanted to be an artist? And I know the answer to that because you've been doing both, the science and the music.
Yeah, it was a push and pull for quite a while, I think, in my life. I started really singing at the age of 8 to 10 years old in church, and I always loved it. It was something I loved to do, and my family was always heavily involved in music, and whether it was a band, whether it was worship music or doing any of that. And so it was always pulling on me. But there was just something in me that always felt like, no, 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 just kind of keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep doing something in the sciences, keep doing that. And so when I finally got to college, I decided to go for biochemistry, and I got my degree. And I was going to go on for my doctorate, my PhD. And about the last year, my senior year, as I was finishing up all my work and I was looking at grad schools to apply to, I just, in my heart, I just felt like, I can't do this. Like, I can do it, but I can't, because I need to see what it would be like to be in this 100% and give it my all. For those 4 years, I was balancing both the biochemistry degree and I was also gigging on the weekends. And so I never really had the chance to just dive into it full time. And so I said, after my senior year, I was going to give myself 2 years to pursue things in the music industry. And if I progressed at all, then I'd reassess after 2 years and maybe move forward for another 2. And it just kept going after that, and I haven't turned back. So
Well, hearing your songs and on Spotify and on YouTube, I can see why. Because you're
oh,
a
thank
real
you.
natural storyteller, and your music is beautiful. It's got great vocals, and I think that you've got a real bright future ahead.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
So tell me what it was like, making that decision and finding that, having that duality in the sciences. Often we'll talk about the math, the math and the science and the music
Yeah.
connection. Have you always felt that connection between your performing and your math?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to the sciences and music, they both sort of work hand in hand. And it doesn't seem like it, but I know that at the time when I was getting my biochemistry degree, I was also involved in choir and I was taking voice lessons as well. And so those were both very big parts of my life for those 4 years. And it was so cool because I always felt like I'd be in all of my biochem classes and organic chemistry classes, and I'd be using so much of that part of my brain, so to speak. And then I'd get a minute, maybe an hour or 2 of free time. And I remember I would just sort of sit in the quiet somewhere, secluded at the campus. And that was when my creative brain really started to explore. And I just pull out a piece of paper and I'd start writing things. And I always felt like that time in class, getting out of class and getting out of that sort of scientific mode, then sort of spurred on the creativity. And the same thing with music and just the way it is so creative and innovative. I think that really helps when it comes to being in a laboratory, because you're very much experimenting, you're trying new things, you're being creative. And it's a different kind of creative. And so I really do think that they sort of complement each other.
Well,
So
certainly they were working in your favor, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I love to hear that. You have to be smart to be a good musician. It really helps. There's
oh
so much to this career. So much. You have so much of a learning process at any
yes.
musical career. And when did you start writing songs?
I probably started writing songs when I was around 15, 16 years old. Nothing that I shared. It was just kind of I'm just going to
Personal.
write in my notebook and not tell anybody.
Hmm.
And then as I kept writing more and feeling more comfortable with it, I started to write some things that I thought to myself, I don't think I'd mind sharing this. And so I started out and I did my first EP, made my first album, and I shared those songs. And after that, I just kind of kept going. And from there, in co-writing with people, in learning more about myself as a writer, my strengths, my weaknesses. Over the years, I've definitely seen a change in the way that I write, in my word choices, in my melodic choices, and in all those facets. I feel like I've just changed a little bit and grown from there. So
Well, it's certainly a journey as we mature as artists, and we keep on growing. That's what's interesting is we keep on growing
yeah,
and finding new challenges. What topics do you tend to write about, and how has that changed in your journey?
yeah. So I tend to, I'm a very emotional writer. So things that I'm feeling, things that I'm thinking, ideas that come to me are one of the things that I write about. But I also, a lot of times, love to sort of put myself in a story that isn't related to me and think, how would I feel in this situation? Or what would I want to say? And I think a lot of that comes from my background in theater as well, because I just loved being on the stage and that aspect of getting to be someone else for a little while. And so I think that's a lot of fun to sort of put myself in a different situation and try and write something around that as well.
Isn't that so important, especially in country music, but also in all the singer-songwriters genres, that there's great storytelling.
Yeah. Country music is definitely a storytelling genre. And I love the feeling that it gives you. For me, there's a lot of nostalgia there too, because it was a genre of music that I grew up with. And so a lot of those 90s country artists like Garth Brooks and Faith Hill, Jody Messina, they all just bring back those fond memories for me.
Isn't it interesting how country over the last, I would say, decade, maybe even longer, has
Yeah.
more and more been connecting with pop and with rock and kind of melding, and there's a lot of crossover. Do you see
Yeah.
yourself crossing over as you continue your songwriting path?
Yeah, I feel there are definitely times that I've sort of dipped into one genre or another, especially because I have been influenced by a lot of other genres as well. My family didn't only listen to country music, there was rock music, there was classical music, there was theater music. And so I think a lot of that sort of dramatic feel of theatrical music as well sort of finds its way in every now and then. But I also love different indie music and folk music. And so I think every now and then, one of those little influences will sneak in, and I'll try and write something to that feel. But yes, country music definitely has changed over the years, and it's been changing a lot ever since it really first started, kind of as that gospel-y, very tied in with worship and gospel music type thing. And it's very interesting to see the evolution of that and how you know it's interesting because I feel like it's also pulled a lot of people who may have not listened to country music into country music. And from listening to that maybe more modern sort of pop styling, they can go backwards then and listen to some of the previous country music from the 90s or from the 50s and when you had Patsy Cline and Willie Nelson and all of them. And so I think it's a great way of introducing people who may not be 100% into country music, sort of into country music, and
Well, certainly, when you find a singer you identify and you enjoy their music, you'll cross the genre lines and you'll go on
yeah,
that journey with them.
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Who are some of your influences in both the country and the non-country genres?
Yeah, so absolutely, like as I said, the '90s country music, the Faith Hills, Jody Messina, Martina McBride, all of them. Um, there was always a little bit of an essence of rock music, and that doesn't come in too much. But my dad always loved Kiss growing up when I was growing up, so that sort of big production, I guess, that goes into it, and not only the big production in music, but even more so the stage presence of that in a live show, and sort of the theatrics of that. I loved the Eagles growing up, and so I love harmonies, and I love
There's some
that
natural
sort of.
country crossover, certainly.
Yes, absolutely. So the Eagles were a big one as well. That was one of my favorites growing up.
Eagles were such a great studio band, and they kind of went on their own way and became such iconic music.
Oh yes.
And they had their
Absolutely.
disco phase, they had their more country phase. Very interesting to watch their progression.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
how old were you when you first got into the studio?
How old was I? In this field, so I probably started a little bit around the beginning of my college career. So as I said, I did a lot of theater through middle school and high school. Um, but probably around 18 years old is when I really started going into the studio and sort of putting some things down on tracks, maybe playing out every now and then. I used to be in a Christian contemporary music band when I was in high school. And so we kind of played our first gigs around that age, so around 16 to 18 years old. And then from there, I sort of crossed over into country music.
And what were some of your first experiments? What are some things you learned getting in the studio, working with producers, working with different
Yeah.
types of colleagues? What are some things you picked up as you started?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so funny. I know earlier you were asking me about sort of maybe any nerves that you have when you're in the studio and whatnot. And one of the things that I have learned is that the first session, at least for me, the first session with anybody, I'm always going to be a little bit nervous. Just because it's a new person, you're trying to figure out the way that they work, you're trying to maybe match how they work and figure out the most efficient and productive way to work with them. And so I've worked with, I think, probably maybe four different producers, and everyone had sort of their own way of doing things. And so you'd go in, and maybe the way they cut vocals would be a little bit different. Maybe you'd sing through the full song a few times. Maybe you'd take it piece by piece. And just the way that they each work was something that I had to learn. And but I love it because sitting in the studio and listening to all of the studio players just go in and cut the music. It's amazing to listen to them and to have a work tape that you just sort of bring in with maybe a guitar and your vocal. And as you start to express what your vision is for, what you want it to sound like, what sort of instruments you want to be playing on it, um, you kind of give them that feeling and they go in and they're just really able to deliver on that. And it's a beautiful process to watch.
I'm always interested in how the song changes from conception to like the first
Yeah.
draft to you put it together with the producer in the studio with the musicians. What's it like to you watching that happen?
It's an amazing process because there's a lot of times I'll go in maybe with one idea in mind, and then the producer might say, "Hey, what do you think about this? How do you feel about doing this instead?" It's like, "Oh wow, that's something I never would have thought about." That's the beauty of collaboration, especially in songwriting and in the studio, is you're meeting with someone who has a completely different set of influences and experiences, and they can hear things in the song that you never would have heard before. I know in one of my songs, Castle, it was sort of a folk type song when I first started out with it. And it still has a little bit of that feeling in the verses, but it continued on with that feeling in the choruses. But when I brought it to the producer, he said, "What do you feel about taking this chorus and just making it more anthemic and kind of changing it to be this feeling?" And I was like, that's something I never would have thought of. And it really just changed the feeling of the song and sort of the power that was brought to the song.
I was on your Spotify. I was on your Spotify, and that's over 34,000 playbacks of that song. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's amazing when you hear what I know. I always tell everyone that music is like an amber that captures everything going on around it. Do you
Yeah.
remember when you're in the studio recording these things when you hear your music played back?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I can remember sitting like exactly where I was sitting when I first started writing the song and what I was doing. And then it went through a couple different rewrites actually from there as well. And so I worked with a couple other songwriters, and one of them we met over Zoom, and then we went in with these two other songwriters and we kind of worked through it again, and then we worked with the producer. And so to just watch that evolution of the song and what lyrics changed, how the melody changed, I can remember each of those pieces from that process and think back on that, and it's pretty crazy how those things stick in your mind.
It is that amber that holds it together, whether it's Beethoven
Yeah,
or whether it's today's music. It's all
yeah,
that kind of captures society and crystallizes it.
yeah,
What's it like as an
absolutely.
artist to see your music to start to get legs and start to spread out there and get disseminated? And what type of feedback do you get? And what does it feel like to get feedback from people all over the world?
Yeah, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking. You always have a little bit of that nervousness when the song first drops. Um, but it's exciting as well because one of the things that I know I have learned and grown in, I feel, in the music industry as I've moved forward is the fact that it's always a little bit nerve-wracking to share your songs because it's kind of a piece of your heart. It's a piece of the way that you communicate. I know for me, music is a big form of communication. For me, it's sharing my heart, expressing my thoughts and feelings, and that can be a scary thing to put out there. But if there's one thing that I know, it's that there have been songs in my life that have helped me through. There have been songs that I've heard that I'm like, wow, I can't believe that this person feels the same emotion that I do. No one said that to me before, but someone else feels that. Okay, I'm not alone in that. And so I always feel like with any song that you put out there, as long as there's going to be at least one other person out there who feels like you do or who's going to need to hear what you have to say. And so that kind of dulls all the fear because if something that I write or something that I express can touch somebody in the way that some other song has touched me, that's what this is all about. And so it's an exciting thing to put it out there. And as you get that feedback back to you, hearing somebody say, hey, that song meant a lot to me because this is what I'm going through right now. It is just the most beautiful human experience I feel like you can have.
Music's got that ability to unite and inspire and to heal what
Yeah.
hurts us, and to know that we're not alone. That's such a powerful thing
Yeah,
these days.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we've all so busy. I'm a musician as well, so we were all so busy before COVID stopped everything, and we all had our momentum going and excitement and
Oh,
all
yeah.
of our concerts, and all of a sudden, boom, over, and everything changed, and we all had to reevaluate. What did
Yeah.
COVID, the beginning of COVID, how did that affect you as an artist?
Oh, that one definitely hit hard. We had just come off of 2019, which was a year of just amazing progress. I do a lot in the fair and festival circuit. So I go around the country playing fairs and festivals. We played 3 different state fairs and we were just going all over touring and playing everywhere. And it just felt like things were really gaining some traction. And it was a wonderful year. And then I got all ready. I had Castle ready to drop to radio. So we were going for big radio. And I remember Castle dropped on February 28th.
Oh,
Exactly. And I had a full radio tour set up, all of these plans to visit these different places. And in one week, I just had a list of emails from everybody going, sorry, 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 sorry. I was like, ooh, that hurts. And at that time, it was already in the system to go out. There was nothing I could do. It wasn't like we could hold it back and wait. So I was like, well, we're just going to have to see how this goes. And, it was amazing because the radio stations they leapt to the innovation of putting everything on Facebook Live and Instagram Live. And so many of the radio interviews that I was supposed to do, they came to me and they said, hey, why don't you do a virtual show for us? Can we connect that way? And so I was still able to get that song out there without going around to all the different stations. And I think what was really beautiful about that time, especially in those first few months, was everyone I feel in the music community really band together to find ways to support each other. And you saw artists having lives for other artists and having other people join them. And you had all of these new pop-up sort of blogs and whatnot on Instagram to get artists out there so that they could be heard. And it was just a really great experience. And of course, all the shows were canceled as well. We had a music video shoot that was planned for Castle. And so that kind of went downhill. But if there's one thing that 2020 did for me, it taught me a lot and it helped me grow in crazy ways because for one, since we couldn't do the music video shoot, we still needed a video. And so I've done a little bit of camera work in the past, and I decided that we were still going to do the video. So pulled up my camera equipment. I grabbed a few of my family members, and I said, "Let's do this." So my niece, who the song Castle was inspired by, she was actually in the video as well. And so we took all the footage.
she was that
I had to
cute
edit
kid.
it.
She was that cute little kid. Aw.
Yeah, she was a little 6-year-old in there. She was excited to be a princess for a day.
Yeah.
But so I had to very quickly on the fly learn how to edit that all to get it out to the platforms that needed it. I have always played guitar, but I've never really been comfortable playing it in front of people, just me alone. And so that was kind of out the window because it was just me. So I was like, well, gotta do it now. And so I think it just taught me to just step out there, to not be afraid, to just do what you have to do. And I think it taught a lot of us that to just kind of go with the flow and just figure it out. Um, find new ways to do things. So
Thank you for sharing that. It's such a personal journey. We all went through this kind of, I think I will say it's probably grief at first, and then we've had to figure out how we can come back and be creative and meet the challenges. And like you just said, there's nothing more creative than the creative people.
yeah. And sort of the necessity is the mother of invention.
That's right.
It's like, well, got to find a way to do it, so we're going to figure it out.
How many streaming concerts did you do if you had to take a guess during this
Oh
period?
gosh. Oh goodness, I don't even know. I really don't even know, but I do know that at one point there were sometimes I was doing like three a day. Um, I remember my schedule book was just packed. And if it wasn't that, I was typing out interviews and for blogs for other people and just trying to stay out there as much as I could. So
I call this the era of the indie artist because indie artists have never had the type of ways to disseminate, like the manners that we can disseminate our music to a global platform,
yeah,
YouTube and Spotify and all these different platforms. But there's a lot of challenges because you have to do a lot of the work. I mean,
yeah,
the teams are small, right? The teams that run this are small,
yeah,
and you've got to
yeah.
manage social media and all the different the aspects. But in the end, you get to control a lot of your own musical destiny.
Yes, which is very important, and that's always been very important to me as well. Um, just in the aspect of where you want your music to go, in where you decide to put it or not decide to put it. Those are very important decisions, and everybody has their own choices to make when it comes to that. And you just have to weigh your decisions as you move forward, for sure.
Well, very exciting. So tell us about, I know you're planning a move to a major city. Where are you planning to go
Yeah.
and what's going to bring you there?
Yeah. So I am moving down to Nashville before the end of this year is up, and I'm actually getting married.
Oh,
So,
congratulations.
which thank you. That happened over lockdown. So
Another
that's
another blessing and silver lining.
exactly. And so I'll be moving down to Nashville and working down there as well. And my fiance is also involved in the music industry as well. So be tag
There you
teaming.
go. There you go. It helps to have that
Yeah.
that team, right? To build that
Yes,
team.
yes. A good understanding too of what we each do as well, and sort of the strange difficulties and challenges that comes with that. So
I know creative lifestyle is always a challenge, and there's no one path for anybody. As I've learned,
no,
there's so many different ways to make a career and to build a career,
yeah,
and it's good to walk that road with someone else who's on that same path.
absolutely,
So tell
absolutely.
us why Nashville. What's so special about Nashville, and what draws
Yeah.
all the greatest singers and songwriters, especially the country, but also the pop? What draws everyone down to
Yeah.
Nashville? What makes it so special?
Absolutely. Definitely the songwriting scene. There's a great songwriting scene down there. So many people to work with, to write with, to really sort of build up your skills in that. And there's also plenty of avenues to share what you have written with other people as well. And it's just sort of, there's so much centrally located in Nashville when it comes to the music industry in so many ways. And it's that way of networking face to face. So nowadays, the beauty is that with social media and with things like that, you can network virtually. And of course, a lot of us are doing that during 2020 as well. But there is something very special about doing the face to face meeting. And there's something very important about that as well. So
I know there's
getting to be
a
able to,
real expanded network of singer songwriters, and I've heard from
yeah,
some of the colleagues who've been on the show that a lot of them will meet up in groups and share music with each other, and then that's how they find partners. And do you do a lot of
yeah.
songwriting with partners?
I do. I do. I've done a lot of Zoom writes. I've done a lot of in-person writes, which those are very different feelings as well. Sort of the way that you process through a Zoom write versus the way that you process through an in-person write as well. So I've been doing a lot of co-writing lately, and I love that aspect because once again, it's just pulling in those people with different influences and experiences, and it helps you to kind of get out of your habits as well because a lot of times when you write alone you form these habits of certain melodies that you like to stick to or chord progressions or ways that you word things, the ways that you use your syllable counts and your rhyming schemes. And so when you work with somebody else, it's this beautiful way of sort of merging those things together, and you come out of it with something very new. And so it's always fun to write with new people and kind of see how it fits, see how it works.
Find new
So
synergies and new ways of thinking, and
yeah,
that's really healthy. And how do you find partners? How do you is there like a
yeah.
co-writer speed dating type of thing? How do you find these people?
Sometimes it feels like that. No, sometimes it definitely feels like that. I've been a part of some different sort of songwriting groups where you just kind of meet new people, and a lot of times they have. I was with this group that did things virtually, and so we would kind of have these open mic nights where we'd sit up and we'd play songs for each other. And if you heard a song that you were like, oh, I feel like we'd be a really good fit, you just kind of send them a message and say, hey, why don't we try it out? And it might work, it might not, but you just give it a try and you see how that goes. And sometimes I've been referred to people to write with as well. Some people kind of pair me up and say, hey, I know this person, they're looking for a co-writer. You seem like a good fit. Do you want to try it? And that's always fun too. So that's kind of like the blind dating of
I
songwriting
like that.
there.
That's a great way to
Yeah.
find that next partnership and to
Yeah.
bring out new potential. So what
Yeah.
when you songwrite, what comes first? Is it the lyrics or is it the music or is it the chords and or is it depend on the piece?
For me, it's usually the lyrics. It's usually a lyric or a line. Sometimes, if I'm lucky, a melody will kind of come along with that lyric line. Um, every now and then, very rarely for me is it a melody, but that does happen sometimes. But mainly a lyric or a title. So if you're just listening to someone talking to you, I know I've gotten a lot of titles as I've been conversing with somebody, and maybe they've said something funny or interesting, and I'm like, oh, I gotta write that down. Like that's an interesting two-word phrase right there. I think I could do something with that. And so if you always feel like your little antenna are up as you're walking around because you're listening to these conversations, and if something kind of clicks, you always got to write it down in your notes.
Art imitates life, and that's what's so interesting
Yep,
about it is that kind of
exactly.
mirror to society that art becomes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What do you want people to know about your music and what you want to say in your music?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about truly embracing who you are and being yourself because I know there have been a lot of times in my life just in general in the music industry as well where there's been this very heavy influence to say like, oh, this is what's popular or this is what you think people will like or maybe I should be more this, maybe I should be more that. And it's very easy to get caught up in this feeling or idea of, oh, like my voice doesn't sound like that or I can't do that with my voice. So am I any good? Am I this? But I think for me, one of the things that I've learned through all of it is everybody has their own unique way of singing, of writing, and if you stay true to yourself in that, 100% true, there is truly no one like you. And if you can find your strengths, sure, maybe you can't sing that high note up there, but that's okay because maybe you have a really, really rich, low sort of alto-y tone. And that's something that's really unique and valuable. And it's like, oh, just really dive into that. So find your strengths and just really sort of push them out in front of you and utilize them to your advantage. And when you take those things that make you uniquely you and just really express them, I think it makes you, number one, I think you feel better about what you're doing and you're more invested in it because it feels like you. But secondly, I think people can see that as well, and it helps them connect better because they see the passion that you have. And so with my music, a lot of it centers around just that aspect of being who you are, staying true to yourself, and just kind of saying, I'm just gonna go forward like that, and it doesn't matter. So
Thank you for sharing that. It's such a great message for people, and it's a great lesson to learn too. That you don't have to be like other people. Everyone's got
no,
something really special to offer.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Now, I heard a rumor that you may be able to perform a piece for us online.
I can. I
Fantastic! I
have,
love it when artists perform online.
yeah, absolutely. I've got my guitar right here. So I'm going to play a song. This is called Over You. And we have lovingly titled it the Yellow Sundress Song. Because whenever we play it out, everyone sort of refers to it as that rather than Over You. Um, and this is one of those songs, as I said, just kind of about being yourself and embracing that and living loudly
Thank
like
you.
that. Took all your pictures down, cleared out that around watching me. Picked your clothes up off the floor, left your boxes on the porch, went ahead and locked the doors and threw away the key. Oh, 'cause now I'm finally free. Oh, wore that yellow sundress you didn't want me to wear. I sold my '89 Corolla and I cut my hair. I did every single thing you didn't want me to do. So I guess it's safe to say I'm getting over you. Well, boy, it's such a shame. 4 years gone down the drain, but I had to shake your chain and make it on my own. 'Cause every time you made me cry from believing all your lies, they pushed me to goodbye and better off alone. But I thought you'd like to know I wore that yellow sundress you didn't want me to wear. I sold my '89 Corolla and I cut my hair. I did every single thing you didn't want me to do. So I guess it's safe to say I'm getting over you. And I'm done trying to be the girl you wanted me to be. And I don't need your love no more, 'cause I'm finally loving me. So I'll wear that yellow sundress you didn't want me to wear. I'll drive down the highway with the wind in my hair. I'll do everything I want, 'cause I got nothing left to prove. Oh baby, life is so much better when I'm over you. I wore that yellow sundress you didn't want me to wear. I sold my '89 Corolla and I cut my hair. I did every single thing you didn't want me to do. So I guess it's safe to say I'm getting over you.
Great song. Thank you so much for singing today.
Thank you so much.
When did you write that one?
Oh gosh, it was a long time ago. I think back in maybe 2017 or 2018. We cut it as a live version at a campground in Iowa in 2019. We did an EP of all live songs, and that was a lot of fun, kind of a bonfire campground type thing. You could hear the fire, you could hear the crickets and geese. There were a
Oh,
lot
I
of geese
love
there.
that. I love that.
It's very authentic.
When you listen to the recording, you probably still feel that. It's like, oh, that was so much fun.
Oh, it was.
And that's a great song. And it's got just, great hook and a great message.
Thank
And, coming back and being yourself after a breakup. And yeah, it's powerful stuff. And yeah, I look forward to seeing. Now, what do you have coming up? What projects do you have coming up? Do you have an album coming out or an EP coming out soon?
Yeah, I'm currently working on sort of a collection of songs that I released during 2020 and 2021 for an EP, sort of a physical EP release, so that when we go out to shows and whatnot, we have some physical CDs available. But I'm also working on something right now in the studio, which I'm not saying too much about quite yet. But I
Be
just finished
vague.
cutting wink, wink. But if you'll stay tuned to social media. We have some information coming up about that very soon, hopefully. And but I just finished cutting the vocal for that in the studio a couple weeks ago, and I'm really excited to share it.
Now, where can people go to get on your social media, and where can they subscribe to your YouTube channel and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything when it comes to social media is at AC Jones Music, and acjonesmusic.com is the website. YouTube as well as AC Jones Music.
Great. And your website as well?
Yes, acjonesmusic.com.
There we go.
Keep
So
it
make sure
easy.
you check that out and subscribe and follow this artist, because I think she's got a great future. She's got a lot of work, and I really, you have an authentic voice, and you communicate emotions so well. Has that always been easy for you?
You know, it feels like it has, but I think a lot of that had to do also with theater and doing musical theater growing up, which I started at a very young age. So it was always just kind of the first thing that I did was, hey, when you're singing, show your emotion too. So I kind of grew up with that thought in my head.
That makes sense, and it's that communicativeness is important in every genre, of course. It's like theater,
Absolutely.
but that's the key to being a singer songwriter is that you have to touch people's emotion. You have to grab them immediately.
Absolutely.
That first
Absolutely.
chord, that first sound. When I listen to a good singer songwriter, who are some of your favorite singer songwriters?
Ooh. I love, so there's an indie singer-songwriter named Amos Lee. I love his music. Very soulful, very well written and poetic music. That I love. His voice is beautiful too. There's a girl named Jillian Jacqueline. I think her writing is really cool as well. She states things in a very clear and concise way that's it feels poetic, but it's also kind of conversational, which is really nice too.
Hmm.
And so it's like a good friend talking to you in a way. um, so yeah, but there's so many out there.
And what do you think the role of music is coming out of COVID? And where
Yeah.
would we be without the entertainers, without the musicians, without Spotify, YouTube, Netflix, the entertainers in society? What do you think? How do you think music's role is going to be different than it was when we started COVID?
That is a really good question. You know, I know for 2020, one of the things that everybody was saying that they missed was the live music experience. And I don't know, as far as statistics go, what the live music scene has been like in previous years before COVID. But I feel like as live shows start coming back, there will be an increase in that drive to get to a live show, not only for bigger artists, but I think also for indie artists as well. I think people through that time have just really explored some new music and have found new artists that they like. And I know, especially me as well, everybody is just eager for that feeling that you get when you're at a live show because you can't get it anywhere else. And after a year and a half of virtual shows, I think everybody's just really craving that. And that might be a really big part of the industry coming up is the live show experience.
And the key of what we all love is being on that stage and communicating directly
Yes.
with people. Do you have any
Yes.
live shows on the books coming up?
Yes. So I have a lot of them are up around Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we're kind of sticking around that area. But I have a few the end of July, the end of August, and then I've got to run at a fair for about a week in September.
It's exciting. They're starting to come back, right? The chapter has turned, and we're on
Yes.
to the next. I think everyone's planning their concerts now. I've got a couple coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I can't wait to get back on the stage and get an orchestra in front of me and get musicians who I miss everybody so much, and it's gonna be very emotional. My first rehearsal with the choir was very emotional a couple weeks ago, and I think none of us are ever gonna treat a sound check the same again. I think we're all gonna be so blessed. We're all so blessed to be able to make music, and I can't wait to start that again.
Absolutely. Same here. Same here.
What do you want to leave with your fans? What would you like people to know about your music, and what should they what should they be listening to, and any songs you want any of your songs you want people to check out if they've never heard your music
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, absolutely. Castle, I think, is one that really expresses a lot about just the thoughts and feelings and emotions that go on behind, I think, what a lot of women feel out there. And it was inspired by my 6-year-old niece, and she's a little fighter out there, and she has 3 different autoimmune diseases, and so she just takes them on with such grace. And that song for me, is just one of those songs that I want people to know that no matter what you're facing, you've got this and you can do it. And so it's just that sort of anthem of saying, keep holding on. You can keep moving forward. And I always want everyone to know out there that no matter what you're facing, there are people behind you. So
Does your faith play a role in your music? Does that help inform your music?
it most certainly does. It most certainly does. One of my songs, A Sinner's Hymn, really sort of brings in that feeling of gospel. It also brings in my own thoughts and feelings as a person of faith in some of my shortcomings and the thoughts and feelings I have about that, and taking each day and just wondering, where to next? How do I live today? How do I make things better than the day before? And so that definitely is an aspect of my writing as well, both in a poetic sense using references, but also in the emotional side of things.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And
Thank you.
obviously, you're a very deep thinker and a real communicator. And it's been a pleasure getting to know your music. And I encourage everyone to check out this wonderful artist and to follow her as her career expands and grows.
Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate you having
Thank
me
you,
on
AC
tonight.
Jones. All the best and continued success.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on our upcoming guests and topics. Thank you so much for joining us, and remember, keep music alive.